Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you for one small favor. If you enjoy heartfelt stories about family, justice, and unexpected twists, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue creating stories that remind us kindness still matters. Now, let me tell you about the day my own son had me arrested. My name is Eleanor Prescott. I'm 72 years old, and until that Thursday afternoon, I believed there was one place in the world where no one could ever make me feel like a stranger, my home. Instead, I found myself standing on my own front porch with a police officer asking me to step away from the front door. The first thing I noticed wasn't the flashing lights. It wasn't the patrol car parked beside the mailbox. It wasn't even the neighbors watching from across the street. It was the silence. The kind of silence that only appears after someone has already decided you're guilty. I still had my grocery bag in one hand, a loaf of fresh bread, a carton of milk, Henry's favorite raspberry jam. Old habits are stubborn. Even after 8 years, I still bought his favorite things without thinking. Officer Daniel Brooks approached slowly. He couldn't have been older than 30. His voice was calm. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the entrance." I looked at him, then at the front door, then at the man standing safely behind it. My son, Garrett. His arms were crossed. He wasn't angry. He wasn't emotional. If anything, he looked impatient, as if this entire situation were simply another appointment on his calendar. I smiled at Daniel. There must be some mistake. I live here. Before the officer could answer, Garrett spoke. "No, she doesn't." The words hit harder than I expected, not because they were loud, because they were so effortless. Daniel looked from Garrett back to me. "Sir, can you explain?" Garrett handed him a folder. "My mother moved out. She keeps trying to come back. I've asked her several times to stop entering the property." Property, not home. Property. 43 years, reduced to one word. Daniel opened the folder. I couldn't see the papers, but I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He wasn't convinced, not yet. He turned back toward me. "Ma'am, do you have any identification?" I nodded immediately. Of course I did. My driver's license still listed this address. I reached into my purse. My hands shook more from confusion than fear. I handed him the license. He looked at it, then back at Garrett. The address matched. A wrinkle appeared on his forehead. Garrett sighed dramatically. "She hasn't updated it. She's been staying with us. She refuses to accept reality." Reality. Funny word. People often use it when they want someone else to question their own memories. Daniel remained quiet. He wasn't rushing. He studied both of us. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "When was the last time you lived here?" I answered immediately. 3 days ago." Garrett answered at exactly the same moment, over a month. The officer looked between us. 2 different answers, one house, one truth, somewhere. Melissa stepped onto the porch. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect timing. She wrapped an arm around Garrett. "We've been trying to help her. It's been difficult." There was sympathy in her voice. Too much sympathy. The kind people perform when they already know they're being watched. By now, several neighbors had gathered near the sidewalk. Phones appeared. Someone started recording. I wanted to disappear. Not because I'd done anything wrong, because humiliation has a strange way of making innocent people feel ashamed. Daniel closed the folder. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did anyone give you permission to enter this property today?" I stared at him. Permission? Henry built this house with his own hands. I painted every bedroom. I planted every rose bush. I knew which floorboard creaked near the hallway because I'd stepped on it 10,000 times. Permission? I don't need permission. I live here. Garrett finally lost his patience. "No, you used to." The sentence landed like ice water. For the first time, I noticed something strange. The brass house key in my hand. It looked newer than I remembered. Not because mine had changed, because the lock had. Someone had replaced it, without telling me. My stomach tightened. Slowly, painfully, the truth began arranging itself inside my mind. The temporary stay. The spare bedroom at Garrett's house. Melissa insisting I relax after my doctor's appointment. The phone calls she kept taking outside. The excuses. The delays. The unanswered questions. This wasn't happening today. It had been happening for weeks. I had simply been too trusting to notice. Daniel noticed me staring at the lock. "Is something wrong?" I whispered. "That's not my front door anymore." He followed my eyes, said nothing. Then Garrett spoke again. We changed the locks after she moved. Again, so confident, so prepared, as though every sentence had been rehearsed. Daniel took a slow breath, then reached for his radio. "I need dispatch to verify the ownership records for this address." Garrett's expression didn't change. Melissa looked away. For just 1 second, it was almost invisible, but I saw it. Fear. Tiny. Brief. Gone. Dispatch responded within a minute. Daniel listened carefully. Then his face became unreadable. He lowered the radio, looked directly at me. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The property is currently registered under Garrett Prescott's name." For a moment, the entire world became perfectly quiet. Not because the neighbors stopped talking, not because the birds stopped singing, because my mind refused to believe what my ears had heard. Garrett took one slow step forward. "I told you, it's over." Daniel hesitated. He genuinely hesitated. I could see it. He didn't want to do what came next. But procedure doesn't ask how you feel. It simply tells you what comes next. He reached toward the handcuffs hanging from his belt, and in that exact moment, a black sedan turned the corner and stopped across the street. The driver never honked, never rushed. The rear door opened. An older man in a dark gray suit stepped onto the sidewalk holding a worn leather briefcase. He looked at the patrol car, then at me, then at Garrett. His expression changed instantly. He adjusted his glasses, walked forward with calm, measured steps, and before anyone could say another word, he spoke one sentence that made every person on that front lawn fall silent. "Officer, I strongly advise you not to place those handcuffs on Mrs. Eleanor Prescott." Chapter 2. For several seconds, no one moved. Officer Brooks slowly lowered his hand from the handcuffs. The older gentleman stopped a few feet away from us, set his leather briefcase on the hood of his car, and looked directly at Garrett, not with anger, with disappointment. The kind that only comes from knowing someone has made a terrible mistake. "May I ask your name, sir?" Officer Brooks said. The man reached into his jacket and produced a leather wallet. He opened it. "My name is Vincent Rhodes. I'm the Prescott family's attorney." Garrett let out a quiet laugh. "Oh, for God's sake, I haven't seen you in years." Vincent didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, he looked at me. "Mrs. Prescott, I'm terribly sorry I wasn't here sooner." I frowned. "Sooner?" He nodded once. "I've been trying to reach you since yesterday." Melissa's face lost what little color it had left. Garrett crossed his arms. "This doesn't concern you anymore." Vincent finally turned toward him. "It concerns me more than anyone standing here." Officer Brooks stepped between us. "Sir, according to county records," Vincent interrupted politely. "I know exactly what the county records say. They're incomplete." Garrett smirked. "They're official. That's what matters." Vincent smiled for the first time, a very small smile. "No, they're what someone filed." "Those are two very different things," the neighbors whispered among themselves. Phones were still recording. I wanted all of it to end, not because I feared the truth, because I no longer recognized my own family. Officer Brooks looked from Garrett to Vincent. "Can someone explain what's happening?" Vincent picked up his briefcase. "I'd be happy to, but not on the sidewalk." He opened the case, removed a thick binder, several sealed envelopes, and a dark blue folder. Even from several feet away, I recognized the handwriting on the label, Henry. My breath caught. Vincent noticed. He asked me to keep these until the proper time. Garrett rolled his eyes. My father died 8 years ago. Whatever is in that folder can't change ownership records. Vincent looked directly at him. I wouldn't be so certain. Garrett's confidence wavered for the first time, only slightly, but I saw it. Officer Brooks gestured toward the porch. I think everyone should calm down. No one's being arrested until I understand this situation. Garrett immediately objected. Officer, she's trespassing, Vincent answered before Daniel could. Only if this is legally your house. It is. We'll see. The words hung in the air. Calm, simple, dangerous. Daniel opened his notebook. Mr. Ricci. Rhodes, what exactly is your relationship with the Prescott family? I represented Henry Prescott for 26 years. I drafted every major legal document he ever signed. Garrett folded his arms tighter. My father updated everything before he died. No, Vincent replied quietly. He didn't. Silence. Garrett stared at him. What? He updated everything 6 months before he died. Then he spent his final months making certain no one could ever change those decisions. Melissa suddenly spoke. Are you saying the county made a mistake? Vincent looked at her. I'm saying someone convinced the county they had authority they never possessed. For the first time, Officer Brooks's expression hardened. He turned another page in his notebook. Mrs. Deala Prescott, did you ever sign paperwork transferring ownership of this home to your son? I searched my memory. I signed hospital forms, insurance forms, my surgery consent, but nothing about my house. Garrett answered immediately. You don't remember. That's the problem. The sentence bothered Daniel. I could tell. You've mentioned memory twice. Has your mother ever been diagnosed with dementia? Garrett hesitated. Not officially, Melissa quickly added, but she's been confused. No, I answered. I've been grieving. They aren't the same thing. Daniel wrote something down. Vincent remained completely still. Then he asked a question no one expected. Officer, would you mind asking Mr. Prescott when these ownership documents were signed? Daniel looked at Garrett. The deed was filed on April 14th. Vincent nodded. And where was Mrs. Prescott on April 14th? No one answered. Vincent looked at me. Eleanor? I thought for a moment. Then it came back. My hip surgery. I was still in the hospital. Daniel stopped writing. He slowly looked up. You were admitted? For 3 days. I didn't leave my room. Garrett spoke too quickly. You signed before the surgery. Vincent opened the blue folder. Without looking away from Garrett, he removed a certified copy of Eleanor's medical records. I thought you might say that. He handed them to Officer Brooks. Daniel read silently, his eyebrows pulled together. The operation began at 8,017 that morning. He flipped another page. Sedation administered at 7,042. Vincent calmly nodded. Now compare that to the transfer. Daniel opened Garrett's documents. His expression changed. The deed, he looked up. Ka was notarized at 911. Nobody spoke. Garrett's face became rigid. Melissa looked at the ground. Daniel checked both documents again, then a third time. Finally he whispered, She was under general anesthesia. Vincent quietly closed his briefcase. Exactly. The neighbors stopped whispering. Even they understood what that meant. Officer Brooks slowly removed Garrett's folder from under his arm. He no longer held it the same way. Before, it had looked like evidence. Now, it looked like a question. Daniel looked directly at Garrett. I need you to explain this. Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Melissa stepped forward. There has to be some misunderstanding. Vincent shook his head. No, there certainly does. He paused. But it isn't mine. Officer Brooks took a long breath. I think everyone needs to remain exactly where they are. I'm requesting a fraud investigator. My knees almost gave out. Not because I was afraid, because I finally understood something far worse. This hadn't been an argument. It hadn't been a misunderstanding. Someone had planned this. Carefully, patiently, and if Vincent hadn't arrived, I would have been handcuffed on my own front porch. As Daniel reached for his radio once again, Vincent placed one hand on the blue folder. "There is one more document you need to see, officer." "What document?" Vincent looked at Garrett, then at me. Finally, he said the words Henry had apparently planned years before. "It's the trust agreement. And according to it, Garrett Prescott was never legally capable of owning this house in the first place." Chapter 3. No one spoke. Not Garrett, not Melissa, not even the neighbors who had spent the last 20 minutes whispering into their phones. Officer Brooks looked from Vincent to the thick blue folder in his hands. "The trust agreement?" Vincent nodded. "Henry Prescott signed it 7 years before his death." Garrett laughed. It sounded forced. "My father never mentioned any trust." Vincent looked at him calmly. "He wasn't required to." Garrett's smile faded. "My father would have trusted me." Vincent answered without hesitation. "He loved you. Trust and love are not always the same thing." The words landed harder than anyone expected. Officer Brooks opened the folder. The first page carried Henry's unmistakable signature. The second contained the official seal of the county probate court. The third made Daniel stop turning pages. "What is this?" Vincent folded his hands. "Article 4. Daniel began reading silently. His eyes moved slower with every line. Finally, he looked up. "It says," he frowned, "the property cannot be sold, transferred, refinanced, gifted, or inherited while Mrs. Eleanor Prescott is alive." Garrett stepped forward. "That's impossible." Daniel continued reading. "The beneficiary shall receive ownership only after Eleanor Prescott's natural passing." He turned another page. "Provided no beneficiary has attempted to remove, pressure, deceive, manipulate, or unlawfully dispossess her of her residence." Silence. A heavy silence. Vincent finished the sentence. "If any beneficiary violates these conditions," he paused, "their inheritance is permanently revoked." Garrett stared at him. "No, my father would never," Vincent interrupted softly. "Your father dictated every word personally." Melissa grabbed Garrett's arm. "There has to be another copy." "There isn't." "There has to be." "There isn't." Officer Brooks looked toward Garrett. "Did you know about this trust?" Garrett hesitated. "No." "Did you ask your attorney to search for one before filing ownership documents?" Another pause. "No." Vincent closed his eyes for a brief second. "As I feared." Daniel turned another page. "The alternate beneficiary." He stopped again. His voice became quieter. "Isn't Mrs. Prescott?" Garrett blinked. "What?" Daniel read aloud. "If my son or any member of his household attempts to unlawfully deprive my wife of her home, all residential property, commercial assets, all investment accounts, and business interests, shall immediately transfer to the Prescott Community Housing Fund." "Ation." Garrett's face turned white. Melissa whispered, "No." Daniel continued reading. "The decision shall be automatic. No appeal, no discretionary review, no opportunity for reinstatement." Garrett lunged toward the folder. "Give me that." Daniel instinctively stepped back. "Sir, I need you to stay where you are." Garrett ignored him. "My father can't do this." Vincent quietly replied, "He already did." For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw fear in my son's eyes. Real fear. Not anger. Not frustration. Fear. He looked at me. "Mom, you knew?" I slowly shook my head. "No, I didn't." And that was the truth. Henry had never told me. Not once. He'd always said, "If anything ever happens, Vincent will explain." I'd laughed every time. I assumed he was talking about insurance or taxes. Never this. Officer Brooks cleared his throat. Mr. Rhodes, why would Henry create something like this? Vincent looked at me before answering. Because he knew Eleanor, and because he knew everyone else. Nobody understood. So he continued. Henry once told me, my wife forgives people too easily. One day someone will mistake her kindness for weakness. I won't be alive to protect her, so I'll let the law do it instead. My eyes filled with tears. That sounded exactly like Henry. Always planning, always thinking 10 steps ahead. Garrett lowered his voice. This doesn't prove fraud. Vincent nodded. You're correct. It doesn't. It only proves you never had legal authority. Daniel looked at Garrett again. Which brings us back to one question. Who prepared the transfer documents? Garrett said nothing. Melissa squeezed his arm harder. Finally, he answered. A private attorney. Name? I don't remember. Vincent almost smiled. You remembered enough to hire him. Officer Brooks closed the folder. Mr. Prescott, I'm asking one final time. Who prepared these documents? Garrett's breathing became heavier. Melissa suddenly stepped between them. I found him. Everyone looked at her. Garrett's head turned slowly. What are you doing? She ignored him. I found the attorney online. He said everything could be done quickly. He handled the paperwork. Vincent asked quietly, did he ever meet Eleanor Prescott? Melissa swallowed. No. Did Eleanor sign anything in front of him? No. Officer Brooks's expression changed immediately. He reached for his radio. Dispatch, I need detectives and the county fraud unit. This incident has escalated. Garrett exploded. Melissa, what are you saying? She finally looked at him. I'm telling the truth. You said it wasn't illegal. You said everyone did it. Garrett's face twisted with panic. I never. You promised, she shouted. You said your mother would never find out. The street fell completely silent. Even the neighbors stopped recording. No one wanted to interrupt what was unfolding. Daniel looked directly at Garrett. Sir, at this point, I strongly advise you not to answer any further questions without legal counsel. Garrett slowly lowered his head. His shoulders collapsed. For the first time in years, he looked like the frightened little boy I'd once comforted after nightmares. Only this time, I couldn't protect him, because this nightmare he had built himself. Just then, Vincent reached back into his briefcase. There is one final item. Daniel looked up. What now? Vincent carefully removed a small flash drive. Old, silver, with a handwritten label. Henry's handwriting. Only 3 words. For my family. Vincent looked at me. Henry asked that this recording be played only if the trust was ever violated. He took a slow breath, and judging by today's events, he looked toward Garrett. Today is that day. Chapter 4. Vincent turned toward Officer Brooks. Do you have a laptop in your vehicle? Daniel nodded. A patrol computer. That will work. Without another word, Daniel walked to the cruiser and returned a minute later carrying a small department-issued laptop. Vincent inserted the flash drive. The screen remained black for a moment. Then Henry Prescott appeared. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, his hair almost completely gray, but his eyes, they hadn't changed at all. He smiled. Not at the camera. At me. Hello, Ellie. My breath caught. He hadn't called me Ellie since the year before he died. If you're watching this, then something has happened that I prayed never would. He looked down for a moment before continuing. I imagine my wife is frightened. So before anyone else says another word, Ellie, if you're standing there, I need you to know something. You did absolutely nothing wrong. I covered my mouth. The tears came instantly. Henry continued. I know you. You'll spend days wondering whether you could have prevented this. You couldn't. You'll wonder whether you trusted too much. You did. And I'm grateful you never changed. His smile grew warmer. Please don't let their choices convince you your kindness was a mistake. Kindness is never the mistake. The people who abuse it are. No one moved. Even Garrett couldn't look away. Henry took a slow breath. Now, I suppose it's time I explain why Vincent is standing there. He leaned back in his chair. When Garrett was 12, he took $20 from my wallet. I knew he had done it, but I never punished him for taking the money. I punished him for lying. Because greed can be corrected, but entitlement, if left alone, it grows. He looked direct. Lie into the camera. I spent years hoping I was wrong. I wanted my son to prove me wrong. I truly did. So I built a trust, not to trap him, to protect the one person I knew would never protect herself. He looked toward the lens again. Ellie, you spent your entire life believing love means giving people another chance. Perhaps you're right, but a home is different. It's where you should feel safest. If the people inside ever make you feel unwelcome, they've already abandoned the meaning of family. Garrett lowered his head. Melissa quietly began crying. Henry continued, I know exactly what some of you are thinking. He trusted a lawyer more than his own son. No, I trusted my son with every opportunity to become a good man, but I trusted the law to protect my wife. He smiled sadly. If the trust has been activated, then someone tried to take this home away from Ellie, which means they forgot something. This house was never my greatest achievement. He looked around the room where he had recorded the message. I built walls. She built a family. I earned money. She gave people a reason to come home. The deed only carried my signature. But every happy memory inside these walls belongs to her. He paused. His voice softened. So if you're watching this because you chose greed over gratitude, I forgive you. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. His eyes met the camera one last time. Vincent, if you've reached this part, I know you'll do exactly what I asked. Don't bend the rules. Don't negotiate. Don't make exceptions. If they were willing to steal my wife's home while she was still alive, they've already inherited far less than I hoped. The video ended. No dramatic music, no final speech, just a black screen. No one spoke. Officer Brooks slowly closed the laptop. The only sound came from leaves moving gently above us. Garrett finally stepped toward me. His face was wet with tears. Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I looked at him for a long time, long enough to remember the little boy who used to run into my arms after school, long enough to remember every birthday, every Christmas morning, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. Then I looked at the man standing before me. They weren't the same person anymore. I believe you're sorry, I said quietly. He nodded desperately. I am. I know. Another silence. Then I placed my hand gently against his cheek. I forgave you before you apologized. Hope appeared in his eyes. For one brief second, he thought everything could still go back to the way it had been. Then I continued, but forgiveness, isn't permission to escape what you've done? His shoulders fell. Officer Brooks finally spoke. The fraud unit is on its way. Garrett slowly closed his eyes. I understand. Melissa began sobbing quietly. Cole, who had arrived halfway through everything and had remained frozen near the porch, walked toward me. I should have asked questions. I just believed Dad. I hugged him. He shook as he cried. People make terrible choices, sometimes because they're cruel, sometimes because they never stop someone else before it's too late. Vincent quietly closed his briefcase. The Foundation will take possession in accordance with Mr. Prescott's instructions. I nodded. I know. Then I walked toward the front door. For a moment, everyone thought I was going inside. Instead, I reached beside the porch swing, lifted the old ceramic flower pot Henry had made decades earlier. It was cracked, faded, worth almost nothing. I smiled. I came back for this. Officer Brooks looked confused. Just that? I nodded. Henry always said, a house is made of wood and stone. I picked up the flower pot carefully. A home is whatever you refuse to leave behind. Daniel carried it to his patrol car for me without saying a word. As he closed the passenger door, he turned toward me. Mrs. Very was out. "Prescott, after everything that happened today, how are you still standing?" I looked back at the house. At the windows I had washed for decades. At the porch where my children once chased each other every summer. Then I smiled. Because they only managed to steal an address. I rested one hand on the flower pot. They never touched my home. As Vincent's sedan pulled away, I looked in the side mirror one last time. Not at the house, at my son, standing silently on the porch, finally understanding that the greatest thing he had lost that day was never the inheritance. It was the family that had trusted him with it.